911. What's your emergency? That voice cut through a quiet evening in Overland Park, like a blade sprinkler still ticking kids' basketball, rolling to a stop. My keys in one hand, and the other resting near the holster I've carried for years. I was 20 steps from my porch, thinking about grilled chicken and homework checks, when the siren started low, then grew. And I knew in my bones, it was for me. Not for trouble at the end of the block, for me. A neighbor across the street had seen a gun before she saw her neighbor. Seen a headline before she saw a dad, and yeah, that happened. I'm Reginald Holt, plainclothes detective husband, father of 2 girls who draw chalk galaxies on the driveway and believe the world is basically kind until it isn't. I've walked into danger more times than I can count. I've felt fear sit heavy in my chest, and I've learned how to breathe past it. But there's a strange kind of fear that shows up when the lights and the eyes and the judgment all point at you on your own street, when a call decides who you are before your voice can. The cruisers swung into the cul-de-sac, slow and bright red and blue, bouncing off brick and glass hands hovering near belts. Neighbors peeking through blinds with phones up like binoculars. And I stood by my car, the way we're trained to stand still, and easy every move, a full sentence, every breath, a line break. My mind did the math of 100 reports, distance angle, posture tone, while my heart did its own math. Wife at the door. 2 girls upstairs, the way a memory can scar a kid's sleep for years. You know what I mean. An officer stepped out, voice firm, body tight, and for a second we were all living in the version of this story nobody wants to live in. Then his eyes focused, and I saw the flicker of recognition land like a hand on a shoulder light, and certain. He knew me. I kept it calm and deliberate badge up at eye level, and that tiny rectangle of brass flipped the scene like a switch. Evening Holt. Shoulders dropped. The second officer eased a quick salute that traveled farther than sound, and in the windows across the street, you could feel the air shift from fear to embarrassment. The kind that makes people insist they were only being careful, the kind that asks, safe for who? The cruisers rolled off the crickets, got brave again, and I stood there with one hand on the warm roof of my sedan, not ready to go inside, because it would look like retreat, not ready to keep standing, because it felt like theater. Tiana cracked the door voice, soft but steady. "Reg, come in. The girls are asking." Maya's eyes met mine on the stairs, all logic and worry. "Daddy, did you do something wrong?" That cuts where the vest doesn't cover. No, baby. Someone thought I did, and they were wrong. Sometimes people get scared, and they don't stop to ask questions. They call for help, even when help isn't needed. And that can be dangerous too. She nodded like kids do when they're filing truth away for later. "But they saluted you." "They did," I said, "but not everyone will." Across the street, the narrative machine was already humming. The HOA message board lit up. Incident on Cedarwood Court. Comments splitting the neighborhood into teams like a pickup game nobody wanted to play. Some folks said I lived there, and they knew I was a detective. Some said a gun in plain sight is a call waiting to happen. And sitting at her kitchen table, Colleen Brixley, the neighbor who dialed, typed that she acted responsibly, that if I had been a danger, everyone would be thanking her. Intent and impact started boxing in her thread, while the cul-de-sac tried to act normal. The next morning I walked to the mailbox like I had time, like I wanted to be seen, but not cornered. And there she was by her hydrangeas, with the look of someone who'd rehearsed a speech, and couldn't find the opening line. "Detective Holt," she called a little too loud. "When I saw you with a firearm," I reacted. "I didn't know who you were." I tilted my head. "We met at the barbecue in June. You asked me about car break-ins. I told you where I work." Color rose and fell in her cheeks like a tide. "I meet a lot of people." I let the pause work, then said what had been sitting on my tongue since the lights spun. "It's not my name you forgot. It's my belonging. You didn't see danger. You saw me and decided I didn't belong here." Tiana stepped onto the porch, arms crossed, but voice almost kind. "Plenty of folks carry on this street." The only call was on my husband. Colleen bristled. I would have called no matter who it was, and we all heard what we heard. That night, the HOA posted an emergency meeting, and the clubhouse filled with lawn chairs and opinions, the air thick like a thunderstorm with no rain yet. Colleen banged a gavel and said words like safety and perception and community trust, and Helen from 2 doors down, cut to the bone. "Let's not dance around it," she said. "You called 911 on a neighbor, and officers saluted him in his driveway. Brian, the peacemaker, tried the middle lane. Better communication, a welcome packet. Names and faces, so nobody forgets. And I didn't want to take the mic, because I don't like microphones. But silence felt like permission, and I couldn't give that away." I stood, and I didn't raise my voice. I just told the truth. "I've carried a badge for 13 years, I said. "I've walked into real danger more times than I can say. But I felt most at risk in front of my own house, because someone didn't pause to see a person before they saw a problem. Safety for who? Because it wasn't for me. It wasn't for my daughters. And intent doesn't erase impact." You could hear the hum of people thinking about the line between caution and bias. Yeah, it's thin. Yeah, it matters. And you could see Colleen's fingers tighten around that gavel, like it might change the room if she held it hard enough. "I won't be the villain." She said, "My responsibility is safety first." And I said the part I needed to say for the people who were listening with their stomachs and not their ears. Leadership isn't fear dressed up as responsibility. It's judgment with accountability. She slammed the gavel and tried to end it, but a gavel can close a meeting and not a reckoning, and the story slipped out of the clubhouse and into town by morning. A local station ran a clip from a neighbor's phone with a headline about tensions on Cedarwood Court. My voice sang, "You didn't see danger, you saw me," and the comments did what comments do. I made a choice I never thought I would. I stepped in front of a camera on my terms. I kept it simple. Yes, I was armed. I am a detective. Carrying is part of my job. What matters is what people saw when they looked at me. They didn't see a neighbor, they saw a threat, and fear, without a pause, can wreck a life in under a minute. My voice cracked when I said my daughters asked if I did something wrong, and I let it, because that's the part you have to hear with your heart. Messages poured in. Kind, ugly, messy human. A teacher who showed her class the clip and had the best conversation of the year about assumptions, a stranger at the gas station who said he was raising boys, and he heard me. Support doesn't stitch the wound, but it holds the gauze. A week later, there was a knock. Colleen stood in my doorway with her husband a step behind, pride in one hand and something like shame in the other. "I was wrong," she said finally, letting the words do their work. I told myself a story and reacted before I checked if it was true. "I'm sorry." I nodded because apologies matter, and I said the only thing that would matter tomorrow. "Don't apologize for me. Think twice next time. That's what keeps people safe." Tiana leaned on the frame and said, "Accountability isn't the same as shame." and Alan exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for a week. The HOA rolled out a neighborhood connections night, lawn chairs in the cul-de-sac, names, and faces kids chalking up the asphalt with rockets and rainbows. A little corny, a little awkward. Exactly the kind of thing that teaches people to pause. Do I think everything changed? No. Some folks still look past me when I jog. Some still believe the safest thing is always the quickest call. But now when I walk to my car with my sidearm, where it's been for years, 3 different neighbors say, "Evening Detective Holt." And then they say, "Evening Reginald." And my name lands on the porch like a promise. The win wasn't a gavel or a headline. The win was my daughter telling a friend. My dad lives here without a tremor. The win was a neighbor admitting he reached for his phone that first night and waited 10 seconds, looked again, and put it back. 10 seconds can be the difference between a story you tell and one you survive. So here's the part we'll argue about in the comments, and maybe that's good. Was Colleen brave to apologize, or just afraid of being the wrong kind of famous? Is a neighborhood safer when we know each other, or when we call first and ask later? Do intent and caution cover the bill when the cost comes due? You tell me. If you've been judged before, you were known. If you've made a call you wish you hadn't. If you believe the pause between fear and judgment is where justice lives. Drop your story below. Push back if you want. Share what you've seen, and if this hit something true, hit subscribe, so we can keep building a place where our kids say we live here, and everybody nods.